My voice today. Now, tired of being.
All right. Call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Let me get my pen out so I can try to keep track of where I am here. Announcements. We met for 30 minutes in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss some student issues, legal issues, and personnel issues. And with that, we'll move on to any citizens' comments. Laura Graver. Oh, it's not?
No. Okay.
Well, then you have to wait. All right. Any others, John? Online?
We do not have any comments online. Nope.
All right. Presentations. Let's go to our auditor's report.
Sure. All right. Well, joining us online are our auditors from Zelenkowski Axelrod, Kayla DeMar and Kim Stank. So I'll turn it over to you, ladies. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. It's nice to see all of you. So you have two things that we have presented to you. They are the governance letter. We present a letter to you as those charged with governance. And there's also your financial statements. First of all, I'd love to thank John again, another great audit. He makes things so easy for us. And as John said, I have Kayla DeMar here with me. I'd like to go over the letter that we send to you. That letter itself is just our letter to you talking about our responsibilities as your auditors and your responsibilities as those governing the school district. We didn't have any discrepancies that we noted. We didn't have any issues that we noted. This does talk about some significant accounting policies and estimates, very similar to the prior years. And other than that, there's nothing significant I'd like to talk about. So I'm going to turn it over to Kayla.
Okay, so I'm going to do a brief rundown of your audit. So the first page would be the opinion on your financial statements. We issued an unmodified opinion with no issues noted. So this is the best type of opinion we can issue. Page 14 would be the start of your financial statements. Now, overall, your governmental activities had a deficit net position of about 22.86 million, but this is primarily caused by the mandated recognition of the district's share of the PSERS net pension liability, and that represents a $45 million liability as of June 30th, 2023. However, overall, your governmental activities net position did increase by about 3.9 million. Turning to your fund level information, activity in the general fund remained fairly consistent with the slight increase in your fund balance, but overall, generally your operations were pretty consistent in that fund. The capital project fund continued to have a high level of expenditures, and this was primarily caused by the HVAC project to the district buildings. There were no significant changes in your financial statements with any of the new GASB pronouncements that were implemented during the year. So that was kind of an overview of your financial side. Now I'm going to move into your single audit. So that would start on page 63. This year's major program was the child nutrition cluster, and there were no findings noted during our testing. So then again, in both your government auditing standards opinion and your uniform guidance opinion, those were both clean opinions with no issues. So like Kim said, John makes this really easy. He's very organized, and I personally want to thank him because we greatly appreciate that from the team perspective. So does anyone have any questions for us? Well, then, thank you very much.
I was gonna say, from my perspective, I just would echo, I really appreciate Kayla and Kim and Kayla's team. When you guys were on site, it was really easy to work together, and I think we made quick work of it. So thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
We'd like to borrow John to train all of our clients.
For a reasonable fee, absolutely.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you all.
All right, thanks,
you.
ladies.
Thank you.
You might as well keep going, John. Tell us about the budget.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen here, and we will be getting into the budget. So we just finished audit of 22-23, and now we're looking at the preliminary budget for 2024-25. So we'll get started here. So here's our preliminary budget. As you can see, there's a little bit of a bump from the current year. And we do have a slight deficit down there at the bottom, 563,000. But for those of you who this may be your first budget, don't panic. We will be working on this between now and June. So let's take it from the top down. We'll look at some of our revenues. Once again, our primary driver is property taxes. The value of a mill has gone up by about 4.8 million this past year. It may be adjusted if we get any appealed assessments or any new construction that goes in. Our budget does include the Act 1 cap of 6.1% increase in the millage, but again, we are working to reduce that, and as the board knows, that is our goal, is to get that as low as possible. Some other revenues that we've made adjustments based on our 22-23 actuals, our earned income and real estate transfer tax, we've bumped those up by the numbers you see there. Bank interest as well, as long as the Fed keeps those interest rates high, hopefully we can bring home some extra interest. We did have one decrease. Our SAC program experienced a little bit of a decrease in our revenue there. So we've made some adjustments to more reflect our actuals. Just a little bit of detail in our local revenue. As you know, Lewisburg is driven by its local funding. As you can see there, 3/4 of our local revenue comes from real estate taxes. The other quarter comes from earned income taxes, and the other 3% is listed on down there. 52% of our total revenue comes from real estate taxes. So Lewisburg really is dependent on our local families for support here. So just something to keep in mind as we move forward. And again, we look to cut the real estate taxes as low as we can go. Final update here on the revenues. On the state side, we've bumped up our basic education funding and our special education funding based on some actuals that we got from the state. Believe it or not, some of that money has actually trickled down from Harrisburg. So we're bumping up our revenue forecast to reflect that. We're also looking at some increase in retirement reimbursement from the state, a couple $100,000 there. Our federal revenues represent typically about 1% of our revenues, and we're not really changing anything on the budgetary estimates there. Flipping to the other side of the ledger on our expenses, all of our increases, according to all contracts, agreements, and compensation plans, have been placed in there. You can see the increases. The support staff handbook is up at the end of 2024, and the Act 93 agreement is up at the end of 2024 as well. Something also to keep in mind, we've had an increase in student needs. And so because of that, this year versus last year, we have had an increase in instructional aids in order to meet those needs. You can see we've gone from 30 to 35. On the benefits side, our PSERS rate, unfortunately, last year's cut in PSERS was not to be duplicated, and it has gone up from 34 to 34.73%. On the health insurance side, we are using our cap of 8%. Hopefully in the April timeframe, our friends at Capital Blue Cross will be merciful, and that 8% will get dropped to a much, much lower number. Our current run rate is very favorable. One thing we did do in the budget so far this year is we restored our capital reserve transfer of 500,000. In the past, we had cut that last year to 0, or actually to 50,000 to lower the tax increase. Again, all options are on the table, just letting you know that it is in there as we make our way forward with the budget. Some other budgetary expense factors. Our special education outside placements, we've seen an increase here in our budget. We've gone up over 200,000. Same thing for special education professional services. Again, we're looking at about an increase of 95,000. Cyber charter school is unfortunately back on the rise, and we are not the only district. In speaking with my fellow business managers, everybody is seeing an increase in enrollment in cyber charter schools. Last year we were at 33 students. This year we've gone up to about 50. Mr. Hoover has been in touch with some families, and we've actually had a few come back. I think we're down to 47 at this point, but again, it's still an increase over our previous years. Software, we're more and more reliant on software and software programs. Maintenance and services increase there, and the state transportation formula that we pay our bus company through, that has also gone up. There have been some decreases in our budget expenses. Our in-house online learning, many of those students have come back into our building, so we have a decrease there. And our friends at Sun Tech, they've wrapped up their major roof renovation projects, so our budget with Sun Tech has gone down a little bit as well. Again, the unknowns as we move through this cycle, looking at retirements and replacements. What will the basic education funding look like from the state if we ever get a glimmer of hope that maybe the folks in Harrisburg can get us some numbers? Cyber charter, as I mentioned, we've seen an uptick this year. We're hoping that students will come back, but no way to guarantee that. And of course, the special education requirements for our students in district and out of district. PSERS continues to escalate. Hopefully that rate of increase will start to level off. And of course, our health insurance rate increase will be settling that coming up in the April-May timeframe with Capital Blue Cross. So we will continue to refine and improve our budget over the next 6-8 months here. We are working to reduce costs where possible, for example, in health insurance. We are working to reduce the tax increase to as low as possible. And we'll be providing you, the board, with updates as we go along through the next several board meetings. In February, we will ask you to review and approve the preliminary budget. That's the budget that doesn't count. And then in June, we will ask you to review and approve the final budget, which is the budget that does count. So that's just a timeline between now and next June. And with that, I'll entertain any questions. Okay.
No questions for John? Okay. I think we can move to our board action items, and we'll start with acknowledging the receipt of the audit.
Since you're running the show, I can move that.
Seconded.
All right. Any discussion about that item before we vote? Go ahead, Paul.
Mrs. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Muir?
Yep.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Unsicker Fisera?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Ms. Haynos?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next up, under new business, a electrical contract renewal for Kelly with PP&L.
Yes, so our 4-year contract for supply of electricity at PP&L at Kelly Elementary is coming up here in the near future. And unfortunately, the way electrical markets work, you have to jump on the rates that they are available that day. And so how we've done this in the past is, as a board, you give me the authorization to work with our broker, find the best rates, wait as long as necessary to lock in the lowest rates possible, and then we lock that in and we bring that back to you at a future board meeting for ratification. So I would ask that you approve that this evening so I can work on hopefully locking in some low rates for Kelly and our PPL bill.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Paul.
Ms. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Muir?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Unsicker Fisera?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Ms. Haynos?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next up is the change order for the Dragon's Den.
Yes, you have before you change order number 1, which relates to the concrete work that will need to be done by the general contractor for the Dragon Stand, and we would ask that you approve this evening.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Okay, Paul.
Mr. Muir,
Yes.
Ms. Stanton,
Yes.
Dr. Unsicker Fisera,
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Ms. Haynos,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next up would be the expulsion of student 2023-4. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
And as we don't discuss these items in public session, we'll move right to voting unless there's a question. Go ahead, Paula.
Ms. Stanton,
Yes.
Dr. Unsicker Fisera,
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Ms. Haynos,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Muir.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next would be the expulsion of student 2023-5. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any questions? Paula?
Dr. Unsicker Fisera,
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Ms. Haynos,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Muir,
Yes.
Ms. Stanton.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And finally, the expulsion of student 2023-6. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any questions? Paula?
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Ms. Haynos,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Muir,
Yes.
Ms. Stanton,
Yes.
Dr. Unsicker Fisera.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Now under board information, new business, we have the assistant superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening. Just wanted to share today 2 technology platforms that we were using at our district and we're moving to roll out to our staff. The first is called Performance Matters. This is a module that we have in our Power School system. It's a data warehousing module. All of our data is in there for state assessments, PSSAs, Keystones, local assessments, behavior data, attendance data, and we're going back like about 10 years, and that data is at our fingertips of our teachers and our admin team. So we're in the process right now of showing our admin team that tool, and we're working towards moving that to our staff to get that in front of them as well, to make decisions about assessment or about instruction. And it also allows us to put in early warning indicators, kind of flagging students for certain thresholds. So if we set it at a certain attendance threshold, it'll flag that student so that we can keep a watch on them, or for an at-risk behavior if there's multiple factors there. So again, allowing our team to see that data at their fingertips, and our teachers can see their rosters right in front of them with the kid's photo and what that flag might be to kind of help better serve them and as well. So that's one that I wanted you to be aware of. Second was FMX. We talked about that at the last board meeting, the replacement for Happy Fox, our ticketing system. We've been training our admin team, Delbert, John, and Jeremy and myself. We're getting some training on that, and we're customizing that right now. We're training our custodians and our maintenance techs and our technology technicians on how to use those right before Thanksgiving break, and then utilizing that with staff right after Thanksgiving. So looking at November 28th for a rollout for that software for just more efficiency, as well as a better way to communicate with our teachers on what they're doing about those tickets. So I wanted you to be aware of those 2 pieces. Any questions on those software pieces before we move on to the next one? Okay. I also wanted to talk to you guys about outside cyber charter enrollment. John mentioned it earlier today. I shared that with you at my last report. And I mentioned that we had 48 students at that time last month. We've had 5 that returned either to the building, 4 back to the building, and 1 that went to homeschooling. and 4 that moved in the other direction, moving to an outside cyber. So we're currently at 47. We're down 1 from last month. But I mentioned that that number of students is like 27 families. So I reached out in a targeted way and got a hold of about 13 families. Some didn't respond, or some numbers were down, and we were doing some more follow-up, and so I'm still reaching out to a couple of them. But of the 13 families that I spoke to, 5 of them shared with me like a specific thing that kind of made them want to change course and move to cyber education. An event or experience while they were here that weren't happy with, and so they moved in that direction. 4 families were looking for something that was just more flexible with their family structure, and so they looked in that direction. 2 mentioned that they were just unaware of our eSchool program, and so just figuring out a way to be more to advertise to those families specifically about our program, and so that they're aware of them. And so that was one thing that we could pull from that. I think all of the families that I spoke to were very appreciative of just being able to share their experience. I was just a listening ear. Some were 5-minute conversation, others were about 15, 25 minutes. They wanted to just share their experience in their eSchool programming, learning about some that have some different clubs and outside things, events that they go to that made it a better experience for them, and that's why they chose that. I plan on, and over the last week or 2, I've been learning more about our elementary eSchool program specifically, because there's about 11 of those students that are kindergarten through 5th grade. And so they probably have very little experience with Lewisburg in school or our eSchool program. So just letting them be aware of our eSchool product and our eSchool program. So that's on my end of what I'm working on with Mr. Long. And had a couple conversations with families showing that platform off over the last week as well. But wanted to give you guys some awareness of that project, and I'll continually reach out throughout the year just to be a face of that a little bit to those outside folks and do some advertising a little bit in a targeted email down the road. So also wanted to mention congratulations to our middle school fall play. I'm sure a lot of you were able to be there. But lots of students on stage as well as behind the scenes. There was a full house both nights. My daughter and I, my youngest was there with me, and she enjoyed all the Harry Potter references, as did I. And we might need to think about an additional performance night because there was just so many people that wanted to be there and support their kids. So that was just a really cool event to be a part of. The high school play is also coming up. So for your awareness, November 17th and 18th. Right across the hallway here. The Miracle Worker is the play for the fall. Also, congratulations to some of our fall sport athletes and coaches. I'm sure you guys are all aware of this, but I want to just point out our girls cross country team qualified for districts and states as a team, finishing 9th in the state as a team. And Bailey Espinoza did an awesome job getting gold in districts and states with some impressive times there. Boys cross country, both again districts and states, and they finished 5th in the state. And Jonathan Hess getting gold in districts and bronze in states, which is just awesome to see. Lewisburg on the podium there. And our football team, awesome seeing them this past week, beating Montoursville in district level play and still playing tomorrow. Playing in mid-November is awesome. And then field hockey in the state level tournament, getting a good win. And playing on Saturday. So looking forward to seeing that game as well. But wanted to share that with you today.
Okay. Are there any board liaison or committee reports for tonight?
IU meets next week, but the Alumni Association had their annual spaghetti dinner and it was well attended, I hear.
Anybody else? Okay.
I think the only other thing, there was the PSBA delegate assembly. So I did watch that virtually, and the big thing that was discussed there was the platform for the funding of the cyber charter schools. Something that was kind of not happy with most of the delegates is that just the way that the things were brought to the delegate meeting, because they were the way for, I think most people here have attended one, but you can only vote on like what the changes are there. You can't change anything about it or anything. And the way that the edits were made, it was kind of linking some of the items. So you couldn't vote, like people were disagreeing with part of it. So with cyber charter school, one of the issues was they brought up, advocating to change the formula. But they had in there about special education being tiered funding. And some people were agreeing with part of the statement and not the rest of it. And because of the way it was brought to the delegate committee, they couldn't vote on them separately. They had to be voted on in one change. And so there was a lot of discussion just about how the delegates are being represented at the meeting and the ability then for people to be able to vote on things that they may or may not agree with. So there was actually a lot of discussion about like Robert's Rules of Order and what can be changed at the delegate assembly and what can't because of the platform committees. But that was really the major one, had to do with the formularity and the tiered funding regarding special education and whether or not that seemed to be appropriate to advocate in the way that it was brought up there. So that was kind of it.
Okay, anybody else?
We sent 2 delegates, right? What was the other one?
So me and Marianne were supposed to be sent as delegates. There was issues with the registration, so we were unable to attend as delegates. So I did, but we could still watch it. So I did watch it to be able to see that, but yeah, we were not able to attend as voting delegates.
Okay. For the consent agenda, is there anything that needs to be held out separately? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on the consent agenda? Paul?
Ms. Haynos?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Muir?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Unsinger Fisera?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. And that brings us to citizens' comments on non-agenda items. And Laura.
So good evening, I'm Laura Grayberg, and while I was not elected to serve on the board this term, I wanted to share with the board and with the public that I did not enter the race with partisan politics anywhere in my platform. My running was inspired and informed by my time spent in the schools as a parent, as an advisor on the Green Dragon Foundation, attending these board meetings, meeting with several of you in this room, attending Dragon sporting events, musicals, plays, hours of listening to members of our community. During all those hours, I invested in our community. A few issues, again nonpartisan, were common to all my conversations and observations. And on behalf of those who cast their vote for me on Tuesday, I would like to share them with you tonight. We have overwhelmingly happy, healthy, and successful students in our buildings. We all know that. We're blessed with safe places for them to run outside for recess. We have a track record of top-tier accomplishments in their classroom and athletics. The community wants to see this continue. People are here for a reason. But doubts of our continued success at this level are starting to creep in. Not enough people in our community are aware of what John shared earlier this evening, of our unique funding situation that I believe is at the root of many concerns, from the lack of athletic fields to special education needs, to name a few. Most people don't know that the high school tax burden on property owners is due to our large portion of tax-exempt property combined with low state basic education funding. I didn't meet a single citizen in all of my discussions who didn't agree that LASD needs to form better, stronger partnerships with our largest tax-exempt institutions. They have a lot they could offer our district, and there are abundant examples of partnerships and pilots, payments in lieu of taxes, and other types of community aid benefits if one is willing to do the research. I'd be happy to share that with any board member or the media. I just want to conclude by saying congratulations to those who were reelected to the board. I do believe we have a strong board. I wouldn't have put my hat in the ring to work with people that I don't admire and trust, and I know the time it takes and took for each of you to get these seats. I was hoping to congratulate in person Justin and Ashley, but unfortunately I don't have this opportunity tonight, but thank you again for all you do for the district.
Thank you, Laura. John, are there any others online?
No online comments.
Okay. We will move to director's comments. Jamie, you want to start us off?
I don't have any director's comments, other than I did want to do a thank you, because I do see a donation regarding Green Dragon Foundation, and so I did want to do that for Graver and Dontix. But other than that, I don't have any comments.
Jordan?
A lot of good stuff is always going on. Awesome to see all the sports, music. I mean, I'm still thinking about our last meeting, getting that recognition again. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that we're doing very well here. I had the really fun opportunity to stand at the polls for 13 hours on Tuesday, and I'm always blown away at the number of comments that people share everything, the good, the bad, the even worse. There are a lot of concerns in our district. As I heard one person, I'd introduced myself and they said, "Oh, I know who you are." And I was like, "Oh, I don't think that's good." But they continued to share with me some very serious concerns that they have about the district. Received a lot of highlights and again, a lot of lowlights as well. So I'm encouraged to take some of that feedback. Again, some of the things that people have made me aware that I'd love to, just haven't had the chance to reach out to the administration about, but I'm sure there's some things that we can certainly work on down the road. So I'm looking forward to another 4 years. And again, I appreciate all the, we always joke that, the vegetable aisle at the grocery store at 9 p.m. Those comments are always, those conversations are always enlightening, but do that 13 hours at the polls and you hear a lot of stuff. So again, I appreciate all the feedback that the community members have shared with me, phone calls, emails, all that stuff. I don't take it lightly. And again, we definitely have some work to do here in the district, but there's also a lot of really awesome things happening. So some highs and lows, definitely.
Marianne?
I want to also, the students who, Bailey and the Hess, there's been a couple Hesses, and they all run really fast. And I'm sorry that I don't remember this one's name.
Jonathan.
Thank you. Just really impressed, as always, that our students are doing so well. I want to wish the football team and the field hockey team good luck this weekend. And Mr. Hoover, I'm really glad that you're reaching out to these families. I think that's very telling that this district cares enough to do that. We're not begging them to come back. We're trying to understand why they're not here. And I think that's a really great step and says a lot about us as a district. So thank you for doing that. And I know that I'm interested in hearing sort of writ large, broadly, not individuals,
Right.
but sort of what people are saying about their situations that had them leave, because that's important in addressing this, which is another huge drain on our financial situation. So, yeah, that's all I have tonight. Thanks.
Ross?
All right. First, I want to congratulate the field hockey team on their second consecutive district title. Excellent work done by the athletes, coaching staff, and anybody that's involved with sports knows that that's the parents and families involved as well. Echoing everybody else's statements, good luck in states this weekend. Secondly, want to congratulate Bailey Espinoza on her state championship. Tremendous accomplishment that deserves mentioning once again, like we all have done. And lastly, I'd like to thank all of the board members for your partnership over these past few months. Specifically, I'd like to thank Dr. Aaron Jablonski, Mrs. Kristen Kraus, Dr. Tara Unziker-Facero, Mr. Corey Heath, and Mr. Jordan Petzer for your votes of confidence during the appointment process. I have been honored to serve with all of you, and I wish you all the best and pray that God continues to bless you and guide your decisions for our district.
Thank you. Heather?
Again, I'd also like to congratulate the athletes. Fantastic. It's just neat to hear every time we get together about all the ways that our schools and our school communities bring out the best in our students. And it can be sports, it can be music, it can be plays. And of course, there are students who need to find other ways to express themselves and be engaged. And I have a lot of faith in our administrators and teachers to keep their eyes on those students as well, who may need just a little more support in finding that thing or those things in their school lives that keep them happy in the buildings. Thanks, Laura, for being here and saying what you had to say. And I'm grateful for the people in the community who are willing to run for office. It's, it says a lot about our community that we have lots of people who want to contribute. I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Sarah?
I just want to thank everyone for putting up with me for quite a few years, some of you more than others. Kathy, I think you've put up with me the longest, but I'm glad that you're leading our district. And I want to echo some of the things that Laura said. I wish I was going out on my own terms, but I'm not. And I still feel like there's work to do. So you probably see me at some board meetings. I too stood at the polls quite a while on Tuesday and met a lot of people and ran into some people that I hadn't seen in a long time. In fact, a couple previous board members, which was nice. But I had a couple parents actually with some genuine concerns, which I'll share with you, Kathy, later. Things that I hadn't heard about, but just literally in that day heard from, I think, 3 different people, separate walks of life of a concern. So I think it is important as board members to be out in the community and be able to field some of those things, maybe not to deal with them, but to bring them to the proper channels so that things can be dealt with and fixed, and we can provide the best education as well as social learning for our students. I think that our community has changed tremendously since I moved here. I think people still come here for this great school, but I want to keep it great. And some of the changes I still kind of don't understand. When you look at neighboring districts, the community supports the people that are usually serving, and Lewisburg has never done that, or very rarely does that. And I find that kind of fascinating that, so, 2 people that have never attended a board meeting would get voted on to the board. And I have nothing against Ashley and Justin. I stood most of the day with Justin, and he seems like a very upstanding man. I think he'll do a great job, and we all got to meet Ashley. But I think that passion and commitment is very important, and I think Laura showed that. Ross has obviously showed that, and I know that I have. So I'm not going to drone on anymore, but I do appreciate the time that I was here, all the things that I learned, and the relationships that I now have with administrators as well as teachers and other staff. And it's lifelong things that I'll take with me. And I hope that I do see you guys in the grocery store aisle, because I might have some things to say to you.
I think you and I will definitely be there at 9 p.m.
Yeah, I know, or midnight. I just want to say congratulations to the sports teams, and I am very happy that we have a swim coach, because I was really worried that I was going to have to apply for the job, and I think Chris Long was more worried than I was. So it's all good stuff, and my son can now kind of relax and realize that his mother won't be trying to help coach swim. And last but not least, I just also had a conversation with Mary Browse, and she said to tell everyone hi, and of course continue to support Sun. That's it.
Kristen?
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what we've said about the sports teams. All of them, football, both soccers had great seasons as well, both soccer teams. Field hockey, if you know Bailey Espinoza, if you know her family, you know that she lives, eats, and breathes what she does. and she runs by my house almost every single day. She is a great example of someone who has set goals for themselves and worked tirelessly at it. I actually wanted to give a little shout out for Sun Tech. Mrs. Reber, thank you for sharing that they had, on Thursdays and Fridays, they have their cosmetology program open. So on conference day last Friday, my daughter and I went over and got some treatments, and it was amazing. I had toured the building once before, but I had never been in there with students there. And it's just really neat. You can tell everybody is very, very committed and happy with what they're doing and working really hard, and it was great. We really enjoyed ourselves. I just wanted to say thank you to Ross and Tara. Ross, I've enjoyed working with you and getting to know you these past few months. And Tara, I have always really appreciated your historical knowledge and your ability to let us know why things were maybe done the way they were in the past, or something was tried before and it didn't work. I've always greatly appreciated that. So thank you both. And I think that's all.
Kelly?
Yeah, thank you. Ross, thank you. A pleasure to meet you. I know your interest in the district will not wane. I look forward to working with you again. Tara, you're right. A lot of time, a lot of heart, a lot of passion in your service. Thank you, thank you. And I know we'll talk again and again. And I've always appreciated your commitment to the district and to all of our programs. And Vince, spot on, good report. Guy's doing a good job. He really is. Thank you.
Aaron, I'm going to give you the last word again, but I'm just going to quickly, in addition to reiterating what a lot's been said, I want to formally thank Ross and Tara for their months and years of service, respectively. We've enjoyed working with you. I've known both of you for long enough that I was sure that that would be the case, but it turned out to be. So thank you very much. We appreciate what you've done for us. And with that, Aaron, I'll let you close us out.
Thanks, Corey. I also want to thank Tara very much. Many years, many hours, many retreats, many documents. Thank you. And Ross, thank you for the last few months, and it has been a pleasure to get to know you. And Laura, if you're still in the audience as well, it is amazing that our community is so fortunate to have so many people who are so invested in our school district. So whether it's on the school board or on the Green Dragon Foundation or in the PSA or in any of our sports boosters or other organizations or the play parents or the folks that sell concessions, all the things, we always have people that show up. And I hope that we continue to have all of those folks, wherever you find your place, team moms, whatever it happens to be, band parents. We're lucky. We're a really, really lucky community. And we should treasure that. So that's all I'll say. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. That's that.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.